They said the Cubs were lost, that the humans never stood a chance on Zareth Ridge, not against plasma storms and the Ardent Legion. But when dawn came, the horizon bled gold, and there she was. Commander Aria Vale, armor scorched, steps heavy, carrying 2 alien cubs in her arms, wrapped in her battle banner like newborns in silk. The Legion called it impossible. The fleet called it a miracle. But the truth, it was something far greater, a reminder of what it means to be human. If that opening sent chills down your spine, stick around, because what happened before and after that moment will make you rethink everything you know about humans in war. Hit like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who still believes humanity, as greatest power isn't technology, it is heart. Now let's step onto Zareth Ridge and see how one soldier rewrote the meaning of courage. The battlefield of Zareth Ridge had once been beautiful. Long before the plasma storms and orbital strikes, the ridge had shimmered with silver-leafed trees and blue crystal streams that caught sunlight like liquid glass. But on the 7th day of the war, all that beauty burned. Commander Aria Vale stood on the ridge's edge, visor cracked, oxygen meter flickering red. Below her, the valley writhed, smoke, screaming, artillery flashes painting the ground like broken lightning. She had lost contact with her unit an hour ago. The comms were fried, her squad scattered. Somewhere beyond the wreckage, the Ardent Legion advanced. An army of scaled warriors, their armor gleaming with the sigils of fire and vengeance. Humans had underestimated them. The Legion didn't just fight, they hunted. And now, trapped behind enemy lines, Aria's only chance was to reach the evac point at the old comm tower before orbital strike 0 hour. But just as she began moving, she heard it, a sound that didn't belong on any battlefield. A cry, thin, high-pitched, not human. Aria froze. She turned toward the sound. A broken trench, half-collapsed, littered with shattered weapons and scorched alien bodies. She almost dismissed it as a trick of the wind, until the cry came again. Help! Her HUD blinked in confusion. Translation software kicked in, recognizing the word from the Ardent dialect. She dropped into the trench. 2 small shapes huddled beneath a twisted energy shield. Fur singed, eyes glowing faintly gold. Cubs, Ardent cubs, barely a year old if their size was any clue. Their mother lay beside them, motionless. Aria's throat tightened. She'd seen plenty of the Legion's fury, but never this. The mother's armor was melted through her chest. Her claws were still clenched around her cubs. And for the first time that day, Aria felt something other than fear or rage. She felt pity. One of the cubs tried to crawl away, snarling weakly. The other simply whimpered, too exhausted to move. Aria knelt beside them, her gauntlet trembling. Easy, easy, little ones. The translator struggled with her tone, but it didn't matter. Her voice, human, soft, seemed to calm them. For a moment, the world outside the trench vanished. The bombardments faded. There was only her, 2 frightened lives, and the silent promise echoing in her chest. No child dies here today. She checked her scanner. The nearest human signal was 12 clicks east, impossible with the storm coming. And worse, her armor picked up incoming hostiles. The Legion had detected movement. They'd come for the bodies. She could leave the cubs. No one would blame her. They weren't hers. They weren't even human. But something in Aria's gut burned hotter than logic. These cubs hadn't started this war. They were just caught in it, like all the others. So she made her choice. She pulled off her tattered unit banner, a red cloth marked with the insignia of the 12th Terran Infantry, and wrapped it gently around the cubs, shielding their faces from the cold and dust. "You stay quiet," she whispered, lifting them both into her arms. "We're getting out of here." Then she turned toward the ridge and ran. The wind howled through the ruins. Plasma bolts cracked the air. Each step drove agony through her legs, each breath scraped fire through her lungs. But she didn't stop. Aria Vale, one human against an army, carried 2 alien children through the storm. By the time she reached the crater field, the Legion's scouts had her in their sights. She could feel the heat of their weapons locking on. Her armor's AI screamed warnings. But ahead, through the blinding rain, she saw something. A faint blue shimmer. The evac beacon, almost there. Just a little more, she murmured. A bolt seared across her shoulder. Pain tore through her body. She stumbled, fell to one knee, but she didn't let go of the cubs. She pulled them closer, covering them with her own body as plasma fire rained down. Her shield generator failed. The banner caught flame. She tore it free, beating out the sparks, then wrapped it tighter around them, even as the cloth blackened and smoked. Another blast. Her HUD went dark. Aria gritted her teeth, rose again, and kept moving. Step by step, breath by breath, until the air grew still. She turned. The Legion scouts had stopped firing. They stood at the ridgeline, staring. Maybe it was the sight of a wounded human carrying their young. Maybe it was the banner, red against the ash, fluttering like a wounded flag of truce. For whatever reason, they didn't shoot again. When Aria finally collapsed beside the evac beacon, she cradled the cubs beneath her armor, whispering something no translator could carry. A promise meant only for those who still believed mercy was stronger than hate. The storm closed over the ridge. Command lost all contact. Everyone assumed she was gone, and that the cubs had fallen in battle. But Zareth Ridge would remember, because somewhere beneath that golden dawn buried under dust and silence, something was still breathing, and it would change everything. When the rescue team reached Zareth Ridge 2 days later, they didn't find a battlefield. They found a graveyard painted in silence, charred hulls, broken banners, a ridge carved by lightning. Most assumed Commander Aria Vale had perished with her unit. Her name was listed among the fallen, a simple data tag, MIA, presumed KIA. No one questioned it. After all, no human could survive that long behind Legion lines. But Aria did. In a shattered cave near the valley's edge, she woke to darkness. Pain pulsed through her like molten iron. Her armor was fused in places, her leg broken, her air supply near empty. Yet she wasn't alone. The cubs were there, alive, huddled close, their fur faintly glowing as they shared body heat with her. One of them made a small clicking sound, a sound she'd later learn was gratitude. Aria smiled weakly. "Yeah, you're welcome." Her HUD flickered. The evac beacon had stopped broadcasting. She was deep inside Legion territory, and the plasma storms made any signal useless. For hours she stayed awake, forcing herself to keep breathing, rationing water drop by drop. Each time she drifted toward sleep, a tiny paw against her arm brought her back. They needed her, and somehow that was enough. By nightfall, she'd built a small fire from shattered rifle parts and thermal cells. She tore strips from her banner to bandage her leg. The once proud cloth now looked like a wounded flag, red, burned, torn, but still there. When she wrapped the cubs in it again, she realized something. It wasn't just a symbol of her unit anymore. It had become something else. A promise of life, of protection, of unity between enemies. That night, as storms raged outside, Aria told them stories. Human stories. About Earth, blue skies, and oceans full of creatures who sang to the moon. The cubs didn't understand the words, but they understood her tone. The calm, the warmth, the love behind them. And for the first time since the war began, an ardent cub slept peacefully in a human's arms. By the 4th day, scouts found the cave. Not human, but Legion. Aria sensed them before they arrived. She could have tried to fight, but her rifle was empty, her body barely holding together. Instead, she stood tall at the cave entrance, cubs in her arms, banner draped across her shoulder like a broken queen's robe. The ardent soldiers froze. One of them, older, taller, scales black as obsidian, stepped forward. He looked at her, then at the cubs. His voice was a low growl. "You saved them?" Aria's translator hissed and cracked. Her answer was simple. They were children. A long silence followed. Then, without a word, the commander signaled his troops to lower their weapons. In that single act, something ancient broke. The cycle of hatred paused, if only for a breath. They escorted her to the neutral zone, and when she crossed back into human territory, carrying the cubs wrapped in her burned banner, the cameras were already waiting. The image spread faster than light. A single frame of war's aftermath. A human soldier, face scarred, carrying her enemy's children in her arms. Some called it propaganda. Others called it divine mercy. But every soldier, on both sides, felt something deeper. Because if one human could do that, maybe peace wasn't impossible after all. The return that shook two worlds. Aria Vale's return broke the galaxy. The Terran command immediately placed her under debrief. Hours of questions, testing, doubt. You aided the enemy, they said. You risked classified tech. But when the footage aired across the colonies, public opinion turned. Civilians saw her not as a traitor, but as a savior. Even the Legion couldn't silence the story. Their high matriarch demanded to meet the human who had saved her kin. When Aria entered the chamber, she carried the cubs again. Older now, stronger, no longer afraid. The matriarch looked at her with eyes like burning suns. Why did you save them? Aria hesitated. Because if I hadn't, I'd have stopped being human. That sentence echoed across two civilizations. From that moment, negotiations began. Slow, uncertain, but real. The first peace corridor opened on Zareth Ridge, the same place that once burned with hate. And as ambassadors gathered, two young cubs ran between them, chasing each other through the dust, laughing in both languages. The ridge that once divided species now united them. Years later, they built a monument on Zareth Ridge, not of a general or a weapon, but of a woman kneeling, arms outstretched, holding two cubs wrapped in a tattered banner. The base read, "Mercy is the final victory." The cubs, grown now, leaders in the new alliance, placed flowers at her statue every year. One of them, Lyrian, often told the story to cadets. She carried us when the world burned, not because we were ardent, not because she sought glory, but because she believed mercy could rebuild what war destroyed. And those who listened understood something their ancestors never did, that the greatest power in the universe wasn't a fire or steel, it was empathy. Aria Vale never returned to battle. Her injuries ended her career, but her name became legend, whispered in both human and ardent tongues as the banner-bearer. Some said she lived her final years near the sea, where waves sounded like distant thunder. Others said she vanished into the stars. But one fact remained. When the next generation of soldiers took their oaths, they carried her banner's colors, red for courage, white for compassion, black for the memory of war. And every time they looked up at Zareth Ridge, they remembered the woman who walked through hell not to conquer but to save. Because sometimes the bravest thing a warrior can do is put down the weapon and pick up the fallen. If that story hit you right in the chest, yeah, same here. Humanity's strength has never just been its weapons. It's what we choose to protect. If you love this story, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes compassion still matters, even among the stars. And remember, no war, no empire, no alien army will ever erase what it means to be human. See you in the next story.